Welcome, everyone. My name is Susan Patterson, and I am a national leader in the fight against human trafficking. For this presentation, I'm going to provide the broad strokes of how the business of human sex trafficking works so the average person can understand the dynamics of human trafficking in such a way that when we talk about actions you can take, especially with regard to reducing sex buying, those actions make sense. At my website is a PowerPoint one can use. So if you're a speaker and want to use this video for training purposes, you can find the PowerPoint at my website. We know from historical examples that once a critical mass of people get involved to take action on any social justice issue, that issue is resolved. We build critical mass by teaching everyone their part, which is the mission of this YouTube channel. Both the link for my website and the link for this channel is in the video description below. First, let's look at the legal definition of human trafficking. Human trafficking is obtaining or maintaining the labor or services of another person through the use of force, fraud, or coercion, if the victim is an adult. So if one is an adult and chooses to sell sex, and is not being forced or tricked into doing that, they are a prostituted person who is not a victim of human trafficking. With a minor, law enforcement does not need to prove force, fraud, or coercion in order to convict for sex trafficking. With labor trafficking, poor families could need their children to work, which is not considered human trafficking, just a violation of labor laws. So how big is the problem? In the US, many academics predict that human trafficking will surpass drugs in size in a few short years. Over 80% of the victims in the US are US citizens. According to Dr. Melissa Farley, 84% of prostituted persons are under third-party control. What this means is that in addition to the buyer and prostituted person, there is a third person who is benefiting financially from the transaction, like a pimp or brothel or escort service owner. So a significant percent of those whom we consider to be independent sex workers could really be victims of human sex trafficking. Estimates range in the hundreds of thousands for victims of human trafficking in the US. For those that are victims, the human traffickers brand them with tattoos and GPS chip them. The mindset of the pimp or human trafficker is that they own their victims. The tattoo branding lets everyone know who owns who. If the victims try to run away, the pimp can find them using GPS tracking. The way sex is sold is endless. In addition to internet sites and massage parlors, sex is sold at truck stops, sporting events, virtually anywhere men hang out. At internet sites, one can find a drop-down menu where sex buyers can order people by race, hair color, preferred sex acts, etc. First, one enters their zip code, then once they have made their selections, they can have a client meet in 1 hour. Experts estimate that over 80% of human trafficking is controlled by organized crime. Organized crime means a highly centralized enterprise run by criminals for the purpose of engaging in illegal activity. Examples are street gangs, outlaw banker gangs, the Mexican cartel, and all the mafias. Many gangs, like street gangs, have given up their rivalries to work together because there is so much money to be made. In many communities, prostitution has been normalized. Gang members, pimps, and their women are at parties showing off their bling in an effort to recruit the youth. They attend church as a way to promote that they are normal people and that this is a job like any other job, as a way to get the youth involved. There is nothing normal about this life. It is violent and brutal. Not only is prostitution violent, the incredibly demeaning way that sex buyers talk to the prostituted person would disgust you in a way that you can't even imagine. Human traffickers operate like a business. They are connected through social media, where they share hot tips for how to get more buyers, how to keep their victims in line, how to avoid arrest, etc. They hold national events like Pimp of the Year and give out awards at these parties. The sex buyers use John boards to rate prostituted persons and how well the prostituted person performed. The one here is very toned down compared to what is out there. Most John boards are graphic. Rub maps are used for illegal massage parlors to rate sex acts. By subscribing, you can find the name of the provider, the sex acts they perform, and the cost. If you suspect a massage parlor sells sex acts, please call the police. The point here is that human sex trafficking is highly organized and operating in plain sight if you know where to look. Quotas are often $1,000 a night for street prostitution. If the victim doesn't make quota, they are severely punished. If the victim tries to run away, they are beaten within an inch of their life or killed. Human trafficking victims experience a higher rate of PTSD than soldiers involved in conflict. In one study, researchers from the Institute of Psychiatry, Psychology, and Neuroscience at King's College London found that 39% of adults and 27% of children who were trafficked had PTSD. Depending on the type of conflict, the rate of PTSD for soldiers is 10 to 31%. The report entitled Prostitution Violence and Post-Traumatic Stress Disorder by the Prostitution Research and Education Organization makes the case for how violent prostitution is, both for the independent sex workers and victims of human trafficking. Prostitution has the highest rate of homicide than any other profession. 82% of the respondents reported having been physically assaulted since entering prostitution. Of those who had been physically assaulted, 55% had been assaulted by customers. 68% reported having been raped since entering prostitution. 48% have been raped more than 5 times. Given the true reality of prostitution, we really need to do something about how the media, rap songs, etc. glamorize prostitution, because by glamorizing it, it makes it easier for the traffickers to trick people, especially the youth. Pretty Hoe is an example of how street pimps are using social media to solicit minors and adults to become victims of human trafficking. This 22-year-old with over 4,000 Twitter followers would boast about how she would throw bleach on her victims and beat them with a broom to keep them in line. Her pimp followers cheered her on. She was arrested and got 15 years. Not only is prostitution glamorized, it has become increasingly legitimized. In their April 2019 issue, Teen Vogue posted an article entitled, "Why Sex Work is Real Work." Teen Vogue markets to 13-year-old girls. Do we really want our sons and daughters to enter a career where over half will be assaulted and raped and where many will be killed? Obviously not. So we need to speak up against legalizing prostitution. You may think at this point that I'm no longer talking about human trafficking and that I've veered into prostitution. The problem is that the business of prostitution allows the traffickers to hide their victims in plain sight. So prostitution and human trafficking are very much entwined. The Nevada counties where prostitution has been legalized has some of the highest rates of human trafficking in the U.S. When we normalize and legitimize prostitution, it becomes easier for human traffickers to trick people into becoming victims as they pretend to be legitimate businessmen and women who will help you make money as a prostituted person. Once the victim enters the life of prostitution, they often become trapped. In addition to social media and magazine articles, there are YouTube videos, chat rooms, books, radio shows, etc., glamorizing pimping, which makes it easier for pimps to sell youth on the idea of becoming a recruiter. A recruiter is usually a young man who tricks other women into selling themselves for a pimp. So who are the victims? While the majority are our Black and brown brothers and sisters, often coming from poor, broken families and the foster care system, victims can come from any income level, any race, and from both broken and whole families. Many will be tricked by the promise of money. Many will be tricked by the promise of love. And that's what sucks them in, meaning a boyfriend who pimps them out. So who are the buyers? End Demand Abolitionist did a report entitled, Who Buys Sex? Understanding and Disrupting Illicit Market Demand. This groundbreaking report interviewed 8,000 men to uncover the sex habits, attitudes, etc. of sex buyers. They found that approximately 6.2% of men had bought sex in the last year. Race had no profiling power, meaning 6.2% of white men, 6.2% of Mexican men, 6.2% of Black men, etc., bought sex in the last year. However, what was significant is that repeat buyers are responsible for 75% of the buying. In other words, there are men who may buy sex several times a week, usually by visiting a massage parlor. Since buying sex acts can be in the hundreds or thousands of dollars, repeat buyers were more likely to make $100,000 a year or more. So whether it's sex addiction and money is where we will find the biggest offenders. What I have shared with you doesn't do justice to this brilliant and thorough report, and you can find the link for this report in the video description below. The repeat sex buyers call themselves hobbyists, which sounds harmless, now doesn't it? What was truly disturbing is that the report found that 20% of men who do not buy sex would consider it if the circumstances were right. That is 1 in 5 men who are not currently buying sex who would start doing so if the conditions were right. I asked about a dozen men what they thought the conditions being right meant. Their unanimous response was if prostitution was legalized. The 2013 study done by the London School of Economics of 150 countries confirmed that when countries legalize prostitution, human trafficking increases. The problem is that there are not enough independent sex workers to meet the increase in sex buying, so organized crime gets involved to fill the demand. If no one bought sex, there would be no human sex trafficking. In the next part, we're going to spend a few minutes talking about how to reduce sex buying, which is key to ending human sex trafficking. The fantasy that prostituted people love their work is contributing to the growth of human trafficking. If a human trafficking victim gets a complaint from a client or a low rating on a John board, he or she is severely beaten by their human trafficker. So they have to act like they are enjoying the act. As a result, sex buyers are fooled into thinking that they are doing no harm. I have talked to sex buyers who told me that they have never been with a victim of human trafficking. I asked them how they knew that. They told me that the women they were with were really into the sex act. Their expectation was that if the women they were with were truly victims of human trafficking, they would walk into the room, sit down on the bed, and cry and beg to be rescued. Once I explained that if the victims did that, they would be severely punished by their trafficker or killed, the light went on in their head that they could have been with the victim. Knowing that the women are victims works for many buyers to stop, as many buyers do not want to exploit women. However, they find it difficult to believe that the women really aren't enjoying the act. Knowing that the women are acting, that they're not into the sex act at all, takes the thrill out of sex buying. What we need is for the media to interview former prostituted people so they can share the kinds of things that are shared during John's school. That the whole time they were with the buyer, telling them what a great stud they were fantasizing about all the different ways they wanted to torture him. For the misogynists, they don't care that the women are victims. For them, what would stop them, according to interviews done with buyers, is a night in jail, or if they knew that their family or social network would find out. However, none of these tactics are going to work for sex addicts. Like any drug addict, the threat of being arrested won't deter them. This is where the faith community comes in and can provide programs like Celebrate Recovery for sex addicts, as many cannot afford therapy. I cover this in the video, How the Faith Community Can Take Action in the Fight Against Human Trafficking, which is part of this channel. In the video, How to Prevent Human Sex Trafficking, I go into more detail on the subject of preventing sex buying and cover things like John's schools and many other things that law enforcement and communities are doing that is working. Let's complete by looking at 4 key actions a community can take so you have an idea of what the community can do to end human trafficking. Within minutes of going online, minors will often be solicited for sex, so we need to ongoingly educate them, and our parent presentation could help you do that. The presentation also provides information regarding how to block just about everything and tools one can use. 2, close to 90% of victims will see a health professional while they are victims, so by providing professional training to this group, as well as to rideshare personnel, teachers, beauticians, etc., it can make a big difference in rescuing victims. Our presentation on community engagement lets one know where they can find training from many different professions and more actions like the ones I am sharing here. You can quickly find the training videos at this channel by selecting playlist and scrolling down to the training videos section. 3, getting posters and putting bathroom stickers in bathrooms is key, because for those who want to escape, they need to know who to call. Please put this number in your phone, 1-888-3737-888, and call if you see something that does not look right. Polaris will let you know what to do. 4, we need more faith communities and organizations to do awareness events that are directed towards having people take action. What has become clear is that we are not going to wrest our way out of the problem of human trafficking. The Phoenix police ran a Jamming the Johns program where they placed decoy ads to solicit buyers. In less than a week, they collected the contact information for almost 2,700 people. We don't have enough resources to arrest all the buyers or jail cells to hold them. And as long as there are sex buyers, there will be human sex trafficking. In any study that has been done on this, what was clear is that we will need community involvement to end human trafficking. To learn more about what you can do to fight human trafficking and child exploitation, just visit our channel. Please do subscribe to this channel and like and share this video. Thank you for watching.